In this example, we're going to explore how we can leverage the file analysis suite to process documents that should be managed as records and use a new feature introduced in Content Manager 10.1 to manage them in place. To perform this function, we'll use a custom workbook activity that calls both the file analysis suite and Content Manager's APIs using a PowerShell script. The end result will be that Content Manager will have a record established for each file, but it won't pull the file into a traditional document store, and instead, it'll leave it behind in the file system and point back to it. Keep in mind, the file analysis suite can already send documents to Content Manager as a target out of the box. In that case, it copies the file over to Content Manager. Again, this example will leave the file behind in the file share and manage it in place with Content Manager. So let's give this all a go. We're going to work with a workbook in the file analysis suite that has 4 documents assigned to it. If we have a look at these documents, we can see from the properties that they sit out on a particular file share. We can also see that the documents have no static tags associated with them. We're going to assign a custom static tag to these documents as part of the custom workbook activity. This way we can indicate that these documents are being managed by Content Manager right within the file analysis suite. All right, let's return to the workbook main page and open this side panel where we can initiate activities. Here we have our custom workbook activity that will kick off to manage these items in place with Content Manager. The workbook is now in a pending state for this activity, and it's waiting for any API activities to occur against it. Before we kick off our API script, let's just take a look at Content Manager and see that no records are in the system registered on today. Let's now run our PowerShell script for this custom activity that calls to the Content Manager API to manage and place these documents and assigns the static tag to them in the file analysis suite. If we hop back over to the file analysis suite, we can now see that the status of the workbook is completed. And if we actually take a look at the files within that workbook, we can see they now have that static tag of CM managed in place. Let's hop back over to Content Manager and let's refresh that search for registered on today. Here we have those 4 items based on that origin API call. Let's have a look at one of these files. Notice that we're previewing the file even though the file doesn't actually exist within Content Manager. Only the metadata is stored within Content Manager and the document stays within the file system or the source repository where the document came from. And if we look at the properties, we can see the origin used with the API applied a retention schedule of destroyed 2 years after date filed. We can also see the source document path where the file actually resides. Our origin rules can also add additional information like security classifications, supplemental markings, and access controls. Let's switch over to the Content Manager full client and take a look at how these records appear. Just like the web client, the document can be previewed with the built-in viewer. Let's have a look. Again, the document resides out in the source file share and Content Manager is retrieving it from there as opposed to from a traditional document store. But what if we are to delete this record? Let's first go take a look at the document out on the file system. If we're to delete the record, we expect that the document gets removed from the source file system. Here we have the file within the source file system. Let's go back over to Content Manager and let's delete this record. Notice the new option to send a delete request to items that are externally managed in place. Now, if we return back to the file system, we can see that the document no longer resides here because it's been deleted as part of the record deletion request from Content Manager. Normally, we're not deleting records. Instead, we're disposing them. This keeps audit information, potentially record metadata, and disposition rules are enforced, preventing disposal until the disposition instructions have been met. Let's take a look at the PDF record we have here and process it for manual disposal. First, actually, let's go look at this document in the source file share. We can see here the corresponding document that's in the file share matching the record. Now let's come back and process a manual disposal for this record. Let's change the record disposition to destroyed and not check the option to remove the record metadata. And guess what? We can't process the disposition because the record isn't ready for destruction. It has a schedule to destroy 2 years after date filed. Well, instead of waiting 2 years to dispose of this record, I can either change the schedule or remove it entirely. In this case, let's just remove the schedule. And now let's come back and try processing disposal of this record again. We'll use the same options, leaving the record metadata in place following disposal, and let's process this. Now the record's destroyed, and the source document information has been removed. Attempting to preview this document shows no electronic object exists, and we can see also in the audit event the details of its destruction. Finally, let's hop over to the source file share and have a look at the original document. Notice that it's been removed by Content Manager due to the disposition processing. So, in summary, we've demonstrated how we can leverage the new File Share Manage in Place features of Content Manager 10.1 with a custom workbook activity of the File Analysis Suite.